What it do? It's your boy Codehova from Combinator. We're continuing on iOS Hustla. And let's just mark off what we finished. We just covered storyboard segues and unwind segues. We're going to skip stack views and basic auto layout until we get to more thorough examples where we could implement these features. Same with size classes. I think it's kind of a waste of time to talk about that when we don't even know how to make an app. Protocol design pattern, that as well. So we're going to talk about one of the most important features of building apps. I mean, most apps that you use, be it mail, messages, in Instagram, that's not the case. Just anyways, so we got a monster called the UI table view. And the UI table view has something it has two protocols that it has to adopt, which is the UI table view data source and the UI table view delegate. But if we just go into the simulator, I've created this, where this is a perfect example of the power of the UI table view. Here we have the 50 US states, and it's just presented in a way where it's very effortless for you to use and consume as a user. It's like, imagine you had to create 50 different labels, okay, with all the different states, and you had to put it into a scroll view, and you had to, it's just a lot of work, all right? But when you have a table view, it makes it so easy. And just to show you how easy it is, it's, when it comes to the storyboard, we just have a view controller with a table view in it. And if we look at the connections, we see that the view controller has a table view, and this table view has the data source and delegate selected as the view controller as the adopter, right? And then when it comes to the view controller, all we have is an outlet to the table view, which we connected. We have a constant of 50 US states, which is just a string array of the 50 US states. And we have these two important functions. And these are two required functions on the UI table view data source protocol. And this view controller, we see that we adopt the UI table view data source and the UI table view delegate. The table view delegate, it's required to adopt when you are using a table view, but you don't have to write any functions a part of that protocol. All right, so that's just what you're seeing. So these two functions pretty much brought this awesome functionality of this right here. And what we're using are generic UI table view cells. We're just populating the text label on themselves right here. So let's just look at documentation, and let me go over a couple things before we build this ourselves. So we got the UI table view documentation open. The UI table view, it is a view that presents data using rows arranged in a single column. The UI table view is a subclass of the scroll view. We talked about that in an earlier video. Like the scroll view is what gives the power to table views. It gives the power to collection views. Very, very sophisticated technology. All right. But when you use UI table views and UI collection views, the use of it is a lot simpler than if you were building something custom in a UI scroll view. So when it comes to UI table views, it's only vertical scrolling. So what we see in collection views, you might, what apps? We'll talk about it later. But anyways, table views are only vertical scrolling. And table views can enter editing modes where users can insert, delete, or reorder data cells. That's something we'll go in a future video. All right. So when you work with table views and collection views, you're going to be working with something called the index path. And when you have the index path, you'll be able to find out what section you're in and also what row you're in. If we look at the code that I wrote, as you see, this function of table view, cell for row at, index path. And when it comes to this index path, this is the function where this whole table view in the simulator, it's created. So this runs 50 times because in this function, it's asking the compiler, it's going to be, yo, how many number of rows is in this table view? Especially for the section, section of what number. And we only have one section. So that section index is 0 because, in computers, it's like the index always starts at the 0 index. So we're just going to return 50 because we know, as the coders of this current app, we know there's only one section. So we're going to say we just need 50 rows done. And then when it comes into here, this function is going to run 50 times. So when it's the first cell, it's going to be like, let's actually print it out. Print, I am currently running the code for the string interpolation index path dot row. All right. So if I run this, let's open up the debug console. So as you see, it has run the code for 16 cells from 0 to 16 because that's the number of cells that have been created. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. All right, so there's 16 cells. So I'm guessing they created one extra because, yeah. So as we scroll down, more and more is going to be created. If we go all the way down, it should say 49. Well, 49 is there. It's because we have a bounce. That's why we see 34 and 35. But we see 49 right there. So back to the documentation. The index path is going to be the information that the table view gets to be like, yo, I'm right now at row 34. What should I put into the cell? I'm at row 45. What should I put into that cell? That's what the index path does. It's a reference for the table view to properly put in the right content or remove the content. All right. So table views must have an object that acts as a data source and an object that acts as a delegate. So when it comes to our code, we have set pretty much this constant of 50 US states to be our data source. Very simple, very simple. But it could be as complex as you need it to be. All right. So these red portions like set editing and creating custom table view cells, we're going to do that in another video because we're just going to be going over the UI table view. It's like an overview, right? We're going to create a simple app with this, covering these topics, but we're also going to move into more complex table views. Dig? So that's that. And data source. Let's go over that. The UI table view data source protocol is adopted by an object that mediates the application's data model for a UI table view object. So in our code, we have made the data source. We have made this view controller be the adopter of this protocol. Because if we made this view controller adopt this protocol, it's going to mediate information to the table view that we have set. And because we have made the view controller the mediator, that's why we're able to put these two functions into this view controller class, and it's going to properly give the table view these cells. It's going to do this code, and then it's going to return that cell and then display it on the screen as we see right here. So just talking about, so again, I told you that when it comes to the data source, it's a protocol. It's a protocol for this view controller. Let me actually show it on the storyboard. So this is a view controller, right? This whole thing right here. We're making this view controller adopt the data source and the delegate protocols for the table view. And so the data source is what gives the information to the table view, basically. So think about it like the view controller is a blank newspaper. But when we have the data source, it's going to be giving the articles to the newspaper to display on the screen. So another example could be like the view controller is a gun and the data source is the bullets. If you're going to have a table view on a view controller, you need to have a data source for it to be useful. And if we don't have the connection of the data source and the delegate, let's run it and see what happens. Nothing. It's empty. It's useless. So we always have to have the connection of the data source and the delegate for the table view to render correct data and be useful. When it comes to the delegate, we have not implemented anything on the delegate. It's empty. There's nothing. But if we look at the documentation, we're going to see that the delegate of the UI table view object must adopt the UI table view delegate protocol. See? So that's why we had to make that connection with the UI view controller and the table view's delegate protocol. It's just that optional methods of this protocol allow the delegate to manage selections, configure section headings and footers, help to delete and reorder cells. So you use the delegate functions when you want to configure the height of a cell. So currently, let me run it again. If I run it again, right now I believe the default row height is like 44 or 50. So what the delegate is useful for is row for height. Row for height. Height for row at, all right? So let's just return 100. So if we run that, see, now our cells are 100 points in size. So that's what the delegate is useful for. There's definitely more functions. Estimated height, that's when you might have cells that are going to be dynamic in size. Some's going to be 25, some's going to be 50, some's going to be 100. Indentation level. You'll also be able to hold onto functions where you want to run certain things before a cell appears. You want to run things after a cell appears. There's edit actions. So this is definitely something that I use from time to time when working with table views. It's will select row at. So it tells a delegate to do something to a row before the row is about to be selected. Did select row at. It tells the delegate that the specified row is now selected. So after this happens first, this happens next. So depending on what you want the app to do, you might have functions in either or function to do something for you. All right. So we just went over UI table view, over its data source, its delegate. Let's actually build something with it. So let's build this ourselves. All right. Let's build this ourselves. It's your boy, Codehova, Fly Combinator. We're going to be iOS hustlers. We all are. Let's get that bag. Live streams every Sunday at 5 p.m. Eastern. You dig?